Today's video is all about the titanium. First, no more sweatshirts. Second, I realized that since we're putting titanium parts on this bike, it could be fun to weigh it before and after and see the difference that these titanium parts actually made. So when I put these forks on, this bike weighed 26 pounds, 9 ounces before the forks were put on. So let's weigh this thing after the front brakes were put on and see the difference that that made. And then we'll put these titanium parts on and see the difference that it makes as well. My prediction for this, it weighed 26.9. I'm going to say 27.7 is what it weighs now. Not going to go a full pound because I don't think it will make a full pound's difference. All right. For the record, it is not on the ground, and holy cow, that made a big difference. 26.9, that's a pound 5 ounces. That's quite a lot, especially considering the fact that the bike I ride on a daily basis is 25.3. So I'm not the kind of person who cares about weight really, but this is the kind of thing that could make a difference while I'm riding this bike, and I want them to feel as close as possible to each other. So we're going to have to lighten this thing up. And what better way to do that than by going weight weenie and adding titanium. So let's just get this thing in the stand. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is take a look at the parts that we're throwing on here. So when I was in Florida in May last year, we actually visited Ryan at RNC BMX. And before we left, he gave me a couple things. And those things are finally making their way onto the channel and onto the bike. So first, we have some titanium profile hub bolts, 3/8 hub bolts. So those are going to go into the front wheel. Then we find our way to the titanium, you could probably guess it, stem bolts. We're going to throw those into the stem, keeping it on here. So we've got those two things. Then we also have, which I don't know if it's actually going to be lighter or not, but we have it. And for the cool factor, we have a titanium seat post clamp. Pretty stoked about that. Just looks cool. And I actually found between then and now a black RNC seat post clamp. I don't know if it was titanium or not, in a bin full of parts that I have that must have came off a bike because I never bought it or remember buying it. So next up, I don't know if I'm going to use this or not yet. I may. It's not actually any lighter though, so I feel like I probably won't. But I figured since it's in this box, I might as well show you guys anyways. It's the Holy Grail Sprocket. It's a 28 tooth solid titanium guard sprocket. This thing's wild. It's a little bit heavier than an aluminum sprocket, being that titanium is heavier than aluminum. The main reason people use titanium is because it's lighter than chromoly. And then naturally, I mean, could we not put on RNC titanium cranks? So what we need to do here is first, I need to get a cool looking thumbnail with all of this stuff before I go throwing it on the bike. And second, we got to get the cranks off. We'll do the stem bolts one at a time. And we got to probably do the front wheel one at a time as well. So I'm going to get that thumbnail and we'll come back and start changing these parts out. So first up on the list before we get to the cranks and the fun stuff, let's do the axle bolts, hub bolts, whatever you want to call these. Pull them out here. The 8mm profile hub bolts. And let's give you a little bit closer of a look here. I mean, they look good. Titanium sure is sharp. And I don't mean that literally, but it is literally sharp as well. So first off, let's do this side here. We're going to try and do this one side at a time. And I'm going to make sure that I'm greasing these things as I go because I hear that titanium likes to seize easily. I don't believe I have any anti-seize laying around. Don't know if I need a washer or not. I'm new, but I also need to grab the Park Tool Polylube 1000. Shout out to Park Tool always. MQ1 with the 8mm on it. Let's just throw some grease on here real quick. and throw it across the room, because would this be a video of me working on my bike if I didn't drop stuff? All right, well, let's just go for it. I didn't do any test fitting or anything like that, so hopefully it all goes smoothly here. Ooh, look at that button head bolt. Titanium. Looking good, looking good. Is this? I guess this is probably centered, huh? Oh yeah. Brakes still good? I'd say so. So that one's done. I think it looks pretty good. Now for the one that you'll never ever see, because it's inside the hub, or inside the peg. I'm curious, does anyone who watches here ride any titanium parts on their bike? I'm not sure if I need the washer or not. I feel like because of how big it is, I might not need the washer. I definitely do need my peg spacer. Of course, you know, put that peg spacer on there. Grease up this here bolt. Probably should have put the grease on after I put the peg over. Oh well. Boom. Not too much fuss there. And thus concludes the journey of the 12-year-old axle bolts that I'm now no longer using in this hub. But we're all good. Titanium looks fancy. And we're now ready to move on to the stem bolts. So we got to go up. Next up, stem bolts. I think this stem is going to look super rad with the raw titanium stem bolts in it. And let's give you a closer look at this too. I feel like we're going to drop one, grab another one. Good thing there's 6. I have 6 chances at this. But I mean, it's a bolt. It uses, I'm assuming, a 6 millimeter Allen wrench. And let's get to work on these. So first of all, we're going to do them one at a time, and we're going to do them slowly. Ooh, microphone is definitely getting hit by the handlebars. Sorry about that. We may have to do a little bit of time lapse here. First stem bolt out. I'm not sure if I need to use the washers or not, provided that I can get it off of the old stem bolts. If I can't get it off of there, I might just not use it anyways. But that will work. Just double checking that beforehand. And I could not get the little washer off of there, so I'm just going to grease this up nice and greasy here. And we're just going to run it. Throw the grease in. I'm assuming that it's not meant to have it, or it would come with it. We also should probably do both sides at the same time, since I had to loosen it that way as well. Finish taking this bolt out. Let me know if you guys are excited for this series. As much as I am, I'm super excited to do all of this stuff. I can already see how good this stem is going to look with the bright contrasting bolts on it. So I'm stoked about that. We'll grease this up. We're definitely not going to loosen all 4 of these at the same time, because I don't want to have to refigure out where my bars are supposed to go, which I will definitely have to do if I loosen it all the way. And I like my bar positioning, and I've even used a level to make sure that it's all correct. And if there's any bumping in the audio, I'm sorry, I forgot about the handlebars hitting the microphone. Wow, the fit of the Allen wrench is so precise that there is no wiggle in there at all. So we want to make sure, and I always reiterate this whenever I'm working on a stem, you definitely want to make sure that whenever you tighten down your bolts, that your gap is even all the way around the cap of your stem. This Alienation Vault stem has a two-piece cap design. So you want to just make sure that the gap is the same in all of them. You definitely want to do that, because if it's uneven, if the gap is uneven, that means there's uneven force being applied to the different corners of the stem cap, which can make it break easier. And a broken stem cap is definitely not something that you ever want to have to deal with whenever you are riding. Man, I don't know if you guys can see the difference there. The black versus the polished or the raw titanium. That looks good. Whew, and there we have it. We've got all 4 of these bolts in the front, and I talked to a couple people here. It seems to be up in the air whether or not they have the washers in their stem underneath their bolts. So check your stems and let me know if you guys use the washers between your stem bolt and your cap, or your stem itself in the back. I'm very curious. A couple stems that I checked personally did and then did not have them, so I have no idea what the standard is. I would imagine if you have it, you would leave it there, but I'm curious if you do or do not. So now let's man, I'm such close quarters with my camera here that I'm scared to bump it. All right, so now we can do the back bolts. Man, this honestly looks really, really good. I love it. All right, cue the montage. The stem is done and it looks freaking cool. Alright folks, we are now at the point where we can install the RNC titanium cranks onto here. But before we can do that, I guess we're not actually at that point yet. We're at the point where we can take off the old cranks is where we are. So I'm going to take off these Thunderbolt cranks, which in comparison to the solid titanium RNC cranks are pretty heavy. Oh, we're going to be smart about this. When you're taking cranks and pedals off, you always take off the pedals before the cranks, because it's so much harder to take pedals off, or at least break them loose once they're off the bike. And a key thing to remember here is that when your bike is right side up, your pedals on both sides, no matter what, tighten towards the front of the bike, which means they loosen, oh my goodness, towards the rear. There we go. Sometimes it takes a lot of force, but now we can take the cranks off without worry. I'm probably gonna need a hammer. No, I'm not. Just gonna need some strategic hitting. Okay, wedge cluster. This is part of what makes the Thunderbolts so awesome. Now let's loosen the crank bolt, which I'm hoping translates over to the RNCs, because I don't actually have another crank bolt, which will be fine if it doesn't, because I can just get another one. Yeah, that's not going to translate. Those threads are not even close to the same. That's fine. So I'm going to hold this, lose that. That's fine. Drop that. They landed right beside each other at least. Let the chain hang low. All right, so here's the spacers that I had in there. I'm not exactly sure what spacing and what I'm going to use for the RNC ones yet. Also, always remember to tighten your sprocket bolt all the way in, or not all the way in, but at least in enough into your crank arm that you don't lose it, because I have cranks with no sprocket bolts, like older cranks, that are just unaccounted for now because I spaced and didn't put it back. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna figure out what I gotta do, then I'm gonna take it apart and we'll come right back and I'll do it for you, so that we skip the whole figuring it out process, because there's been enough of that throughout my videos, to be honest with you. So we'll be right back. Okay, I believe we are ready to get these things on the bike. For the first time, I think ever on this YouTube channel. I actually like got stuff ready to do this so that I didn't have to figure it out while I'm recording and waste time that way. So first of all, I realized I needed to record myself putting the 24 to 22 millimeter spacer in this sprocket because you do need it for it to go onto the crank arm. I also realized that I have a sprocket bolt when I didn't think that I did. So we're going to tighten that onto there now as well. I don't know if I should, I don't think I should tighten it down all the way yet. I think I need to wait until it's all on there and whatnot, and I tighten down the situation to the situation, whatever that means. When I tighten down the whole entire thing. So we got that figured out. Now I figured out that I need these two spacers on the inside so that this sprocket doesn't hit my frame. Beautiful. I figured out that you always need to do grease on these things, no matter what cranks you're running. First, I'm going to put on this Odyssey spacer to the crank, or to the spindle, and we're just going to be very generous with this grease. If you guys somehow haven't figured it out yet, this episode of it is kind of dedicated to RNC BMX, because without him, I would not be making this pretty much. He makes very fine quality titanium products, solid titanium cranks. He's working on, actually just released a couple days ago, a mountain bike version of the cranks. And I appreciate what he's doing. I also love the way this raw titanium looks. So, let's see if we can line this up correctly the first time. Yes, sir. Now, I haven't yet gone this far with it to tighten things down all the way. I actually just fit everything up to double check that my spacing would be good as far as like crank arm not hitting frame goes. Okay, this uses an 8 millimeter to tighten. Oh, I'm an idiot. I forgot a step. I needed to put my chain on before I put the sprocket on because I hate doing that. To put a chain on. Oh, I guess it wasn't that bad. We've got the titanium cranks on the bike. Now we need to get the pedals the rest of the way off. These cranks did not let me down. They were solid all along the way. And I have no complaints whatsoever about the Odyssey Thunderbolts. Did I take the wrong one? Left. Like an idiot. Now we tighten the pedal towards the front of the bike. It will always be this way unless you switch your pedal spindles because you put your cranks on wrong. Freaking maybe. What's going on here? I'm a full-fledged idiot. That's fine. Ha! This is supposed to be over here. I put my cranks in backwards. So, I'm gonna flip this around and we'll be right back. Alright, we're officially ready to put the pedals on. I got this thing switched around to be the direction that it's supposed to be. We can take our pedals and they will go on correctly. And this is a teachable moment here in that if you're putting something together and it doesn't go on the way that it's supposed to, like these pedals were not tightening onto this the way they were supposed to be, which let me know that something was wrong. I was tightening this one towards the front of the bike and it wasn't going, so I knew immediately there something's wrong because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that can let you know if you're putting your bike together and you're tightening your pedals and they don't seem to be going the right way. That's how you're going to tell what's going on and that something could be wrong. So once again, your pedals tighten when the bike is upright. Your pedals tighten towards the front of your bike. Clockwise on this side, counterclockwise on this side because one is reverse threaded. But I've learned that the easiest way to keep track of all this throughout the years is to just remember that it tightens towards the front of the bike. Then you don't have to think at all about this clockwise, counterclockwise, all that stuff. Oh yeah, so our cranks are on, everything's good there. Double check my spacing. We're gonna be good. These are 170s, they're the same length as what's on the bike that I ride on a daily basis. And I reckon the last thing to do here is put on the seat post clamp. I didn't do that yet because if I loosen that, obviously, the bike falls. We didn't want that to happen. So, let's just get the bike off the stand and we'll do the seat post clamp. And that will also set us up perfectly to weigh the bike afterwards. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna give you guys a better view because you clearly can't see any of this right now. All right, it's seat post clamp time. First, we gotta take off the Sunday clamp that comes with their frames. Has a 4mm Allen. I wanna remember where this seat post was at, height-wise. Okay, pull my seat out without punching myself in the face. There we go. Pop this seat post clamp off. Very trusty seat post clamp throughout the years. This may have been the first one that came on the Sunday that I got, the very first Soundwave. Now we're moving on to titanium. And actually, let's see how much difference there is here in weight. I mean, it's negligible. There is a definite, you can feel a little bit of a difference, but it's not anything that I would ever worry about. And I guess there is like chromoly on that. Oh, it's a 6. Interesting. That's cool. There is chromoly on that other seat post clamp in the bolt. So maybe the weight differences aren't negligible. Maybe there actually is one. There it goes. We'll drop our seat back in. Oop. Right about there. This is about where it was, I would guess. There we go. The last piece of the titanium puzzle going onto this bike right now is complete. I am stoked. Now we need to get back up there and put the scale on the stand so we can see the difference that it made. And here we are with the scale ready, turned on. Some of you may be wondering why I didn't use the Holy Grail sprocket. There's a very, very simple explanation for this that I can't remember if I said or not yet. The one that's on my bike now is a 29 tooth. That is a 28 tooth. If I put a 28 on, I'd have to move my wheel backward or compensate for it in my chain. And the differences there to make that work just don't make any sense. If it has to go back further, it's gonna be too far back in my dropouts. I don't wanna mess with anything. I already got my brakes set up the way that I want them. So I don't wanna push it back any further. So here we go. Bike on the stand. My guess, it was 28 pounds even with the front brake forks and all of this chromoly stuff in there. I'm gonna guess that it's 27 pounds, 4 ounces. Yeah. I always don't know which way to put it in this scale to get it as accurate as possible. No way. There's no way it was only 5 ounces. It also slid down while it was doing it. Zero it out. Put the seat into this thing. I mean, that's technically that is a weight savings of 7 ounces, which would be close to right. Maybe I need to measure from here. All right, 27.9 it is. I'm settling on that. Yeah, 27.8, 27.9. So that's gonna kind of wrap up this video trying to lighten up this bike. We effectively lost half a pound off of the bike, which makes sense. It's about in line with how much the cranks weigh, but it looks so, the accents of that raw titanium in the stem, seat post clamp looks good, cranks look good, the bolts on the front look good. I really hope you guys are enjoying this series. I'm enjoying making it, and I still have a whole nother bike to go, and I got a couple more tricks up my sleeve that I'm going to do right now and film another video to try and lighten this thing up even more. I do have a way that we can do it, so I'm going to try and make that happen in the next video. So I hope you're staying tuned for it, and I hope you enjoyed this enough that if you're new here or you haven't yet, you'll hit that subscribe button down below so that you won't miss it when the next episode comes out. Thank you all for watching. Really hope you're enjoying this, and we'll see you tomorrow for another video. Goodbye.